So I welcome all the speakers today in today's program. And now I request Professor Narayan sir to start with today's webinar.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Swamshida. Today's webinar is on financial inclusion of nomadic tribes, dwindling tribes, and primitive tribes. And our Society of Empowerment is very happy to uh, welcome Professor Chaudhary and Professor Gaurav. Professor Gaurav is from IIM Karachi and Professor Chaudhary is from Central University. And I also welcome all the viewers of this YouTube and Facebook. So, with this, in India, the tribal population is almost 8.12%. And among them, there is a category of those tribes who are primitive in comparison to the other tribes. The tribes who are the settled tribes or the agriculturists or are in the employment, government employment or private employment, their social life and economic life is different from these primitive and dwindling and nomadic tribes because the exposure of the government policy and programs are less in comparison to settled tribes or the remaining tribes of India. So we have to think how to bring them equal to the other people of the country so far the financial inclusion is concerned. And we have to see because we are from different background and have worked in different states of the country and we know the status of these tribes. Uh, so we will be sharing our experiences and data, research data on the particular issues of financial inclusion. Financial inclusion these days is very, very important because we, at least for the nomadic tribes and the primitive tribes, because they are at the bottom. They are at the bottom of the financial inclusion. Uh, whatsoever data I have about these tribes, long back sometime in 1982 or 83, I have written one book that is Indian Anthropology that was published those days. There I have given all the details of the primitive and dwindling tribes and the nomadic tribes. These have been bracketed when the Labor Commission was constituted the first time. These tribal groups were marked as different from the other tribal groups. After that, you see now the almost 45 years has passed. So we need to review the status of these tribes, what has happened so far in last 45 years, how much the policy has made impact on their socio-economic life or in their holistic life. All these, I think that in course of discussion, both the speakers will say about something on or about the total things of these tribes. So with this, I request Professor Chaudhary to
Yes.
make us aware of the field data which she has with her. In last webinar, she has much impressed me with all the details that she is having on the primitive nomadic tribes. So I thought that we can share once again your experiences so that it may help us as well as the policy makers and the government.
Yes. Sir, thank you. I'm privileged that Professor Narayan invites me and I can meet Sir. And so that means very important dignitaries who are very serious about the issue. I think today I may say something more serious, which will be that means that our engagements, that is there in my mind to talk about it, because I'm seeing that always we are missing the bus. It seems like that when we look at the policies, it seems that policies are quite good. And when we saw the implementation part, that something is missing. Something is missing. It is that is history. That history, what I mean is that history, why history is important, because being a student of anthropology, when I was a student of anthropology, and in Indian tradition we are supposed to take science subjects or bioscience subjects to pursue anthropology. But I remember one concept and theory that was developed by Surajit Chandra Sinha, who talked about secondary primitivization. And when Surajit Chandra Sinha talked about secondary primitivization, actually he identified our nomads of the mainlands. India, and Sun knows it. Just I'm recapitulating it for my that means it will help me to proceed to my argument. So clearly, he said that the secondary primitivization happened to the so-called quote unquote hunter gatherers. Very clearly, he said it. He said, in fact, those persons, their ancestors might be not that hunter gatherers, how they are categorized, or nomads, how they are categorized in the colonial that administrative records. Rather, might be pretty back, might be in the earlier history, ancient time or medieval time, due to the progress in the agricultural technological development, who were actually shifting cultivators, who were actually horticulturists. Might be they were pushed back to a kind of territory that is forest economy. And we have missed one thing historically which was important, and we student of anthropology also didn't pay attention to that. That is the knowledge system, what they have practiced so far. But now anthropologists and all the subject who are pursuing it, they are very much concerned about the knowledge system or indigenous traditional knowledge, traditional ecological knowledge systems. So precisely history is important for the matter that always when we have discussed the matter of vulnerability or marginality, we hardly look at the civilizational history, where the inter-community relations are really quite problematic. Inter-community relations, we have recorded it in our ethnographic studies, but at the time of taking that at the time of implementing those matters, we are not that much concerned about our personal engagements in those affairs. I'm taking one two examples to just to place my argument, that I remember that one book which is written by the biography, which is written by the first Lodha graduate, that was in Bengali. So he wrote his biography after his retirement, and that book, because you all know that Lodha were once upon a time identified as criminal tribe, then they were known as nomads, then they were denotified tribes, and they remained in vulnerable situation. And when I read that book, it's really surprising to know he was discussing about his father's knowledge about the how to make unfertile soil as fertile soil, how his father since his childhood worked as day labor or landless labor and engaged in the houses for years. and he worked for the development of their unfertile land to the fertile land. And as a result, he received some land grants from the master, and how he, with his all this knowledge, settled down. So it is a family history, but that family history and through his own experience, he when he talks about the Lodha, and he writes about the Lodha, what was the everyday's life of the Lodha. He's writing the most of the Lodha men and women, they worked as day laborer, landless laborer, because they have lost their land. That's very important. That land is not land, that is their cultural territory, their cultural geography, they have lost. And those cultural areas are appropriated by the neighboring caste communities, dominant caste communities. And so these Lodha men and women, they worked as laborer, and on Sundays they used to go to begging. So he has described his childhood when he used to go for begging on Sundays in the nearby cities and towns of Medinipur. But most important aspect of the whole book, why I am referring it, we have really really missed it, because I was reading the book Bihar, that means 100 years back. S.C. Roy wrote that book, and S.C. Roy is writing that the status of the Bihars are very low among their neighbors, and Sun knows better than this. But Bihar women regularly went to work as agricultural laborer to the neighboring community wherever they went and stayed. So all these things I'm bringing into notice, because when we are looking at the ancient history, we are looking at the people and communities, and there were people and groups of people and communities who stayed in different kind of locations. Maybe they were village dwellers or Janapada dwellers or whatever, forest dwellers, Banavasi. But when we are looking at the words of the colonial time, we are seeing that new words born. That jangala is a Sanskrit word which is taken into Hindi as jungle, and then jangli. Jangli, we are seeing the jangli word jangli from Banavasi to Buno. So these words are available in our literature, and which is telling about the transformation of some people who are really went in the vulnerable situation, maybe for their different type of living, for their different type of philosophy of living. And today, when Sir invited me, Sir invited me for this talk, I was thinking that where is the end of it? Where is the end? Because Sir is very clear about it. He's telling of financial inclusion, and is really very good thing is happening in recent time, that government of India has opened up some program which are apparently unimaginable for us, that inviting students and all members of the community who are really in that kind of poverty ridden situation, they're invited to open their zero balance account in the bank. But what is the condition of these vulnerable people who are now in urban foragers? I said so, that I saw that who were once upon a time was gatherers, they are now urban foragers. Morning time they are going to Rachi, and they were collecting different kind of things, metal and many things, whatever they got, and then they just deposit those things certain places, earn some money, come back. So gathering has redefined only. And again I saw, I told that I'm not going to those examples. But when we are looking at the whole scenario of the development of tribes, it's not same in all areas of India. In the six schedule areas, tribal development really has taken a very positive direction. But in fifth schedule areas, it is not at all. All of us, we are witness of that. So in that kind of background, when I was discussing, I was thinking that what really I'll tell. Sir wishes to know data. And yes, data is very important. I'm just telling one case study here, that because when I went to bank, that bank, they are telling that that tribal people are not interested. I'm talking of the sedentary tribes, not about nomadic tribes. The tribal people are not interested in MSME, those kind of loans. So I was asking a postgraduate person who was student of our university. I was asking that I heard that you are in some new kind of business, because basically he's from a Persian family. So I heard that he was trying to develop a cooperative kind of thing and business. Then he said, Madam, it's impossible because I could not do it due to the monetary reason. I said, but bank is now giving loans. How come you could not? He said, bank wants guarantor. Then I thought that bank didn't ask for guarantor. Then he said, ma'am, somebody must be there. So these kind of things he said. Now, obviously, as sir is encouraging, I will go to bank to know that fact also, that exactly in what situation this kind of MSME loans are given to the tribal persons. But we can't think these things for the vulnerable people. The main problem is the illiteracy, that they are mostly literate and we are failed to literate them. And we know we know that we can't take that kind of policy, or if the Society for Empowerment can take that policy in a smaller scale, that how we can literate them more. Because I become now over ambitious, maybe because I'm seeing a person from IIM Rachi, sir is there, madam is there, so maybe I am more ambitious now. If we can plan for make them educated in two things: one, that they can read, and two is that about the financial inclusion government policies, literature, that if we can do like that. And obviously very much fieldwork specific activities, I can say applied kind of activities, if you can take. And today I am, from the morning I was thinking, I'll request sir, that sir, if possible, that if we can begin this kind of work among the persons in the localities where these vulnerable nomads, so-called quote-unquote nomads, are rehabilitated, and most of them are a kind of forager, urban forager. If we can do certain kind of program, and I was thinking that nowadays students are very much interested in internship. Even during the vacations they prefer to go for internship. If I don't know, I'm telling it, that how it will be structured, I don't know. But this reaching the right information to them in those languages what is comfortable for them, if it is possible, through your organization, and if we can be with you, and if it is possible, then we can begin a new chapter, and begin a new chapter, because sir also has experience to work in some parts of Bihar, what sir was sharing the other day. So precisely today, sir, I am here to request you that if we begin some kind of work, just to take the account how far they avail this inclusive growth related government of India program, and how we can help them to reach to that kind of situation, and if it is possible at all. With this, I think I will stop myself and I will join in the discussions maybe. So because we have seen many new words and meanings in last 200 years, new conceptualization on the people, how people were identified. But the reality is that constantly people are uprooted from their own cultural ecologies, own cultural geographies. So, and we don't know, and obviously they are pushed to the unskilled labor, that means in the status of unskilled labor. Even they have the knowledge, they are not acknowledged for their skill. So this I'm stopping here, and I don't know how far I'm meaningful. Just before ending, I would like to say that when I compare the situation of fifth schedule and sixth schedule areas, sixth schedule areas are success stories because they are now in the position of their own resource management, that the policies and the development of policies happen in such a manner, and due to their population size also, and they could maintain their cultural boundaries, and which they could transform to the political boundaries. And as a result, we are seeing now they are the decision maker of their cultural resource management. But the similar thing is not possible, was not possible in the fifth schedule areas. And it is not a kind of, of our history of 200 or 300 years. It is many more than that, because our trade relations we have ignored. How the different kind of products from forests and other areas were transported, not transported actually, were traded from one region to another region. We didn't pay our serious attention to that. And now when we are looking at the people, despite they have some knowledge on certain things, they don't have space to practice that at all, and nobody is there to acknowledge their knowledge, precisely that. So one of the towns in this that means Jharkhand, so some such nomads from the Asura background. I'm talking about a kind of practice of maybe 20 years back also, that they were regularly engaged by the traders to collect iron ore, which were available in the surface finding. So these people, they identify the stones, seeing the stones where iron ore is available on the surface finding, and there were traders who regularly collect those kind of natural resources of iron ores which are available on surface finding, with the help of those tribes who obviously receive very less kind of wages, and the traders were benefited. So with this I am stopping. I don't know how far I'm meaningful for this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Chaudhary. You are very, very much meaningful, and you have given some food to thought, uh, especially that of Lodha, and in historical perspective, we have to see what we can do, how we can contribute. And your suggestion is very good that if we get some interns, we should collect some data, update our knowledge, and then update our data with those data, and then let us have another things. So please send, if possible, you please send me the detail of how to go about it, and the
Mhm.
Society for Empowerment will try to do it. If
Yes,
interns are with you, then we can very much we can do it.
thank you,
That
sir.
I can assure you, because this is in the interest of the nomadic tribes and the primitive tribes who are left from the ladder of the development. They are at the lower level, so we must pay attention to them.
Thank
As,
you, sir.
and as an anthropologist, it is our foremost duty to make such a study which is essential for drafting policy. Because in the absence of such data, whatsoever policy is being drafted, that is a hypothetical one.
Yes,
That's
sir.
why most of the sometimes the policy are not getting success or not getting through. if
Yes.
we, because there are so many tribes, almost 115 such tribes in India,
Yes.
who have been categorized as the primitive, dwindling, and nomadic tribes. And such a group whose population sometimes few are in hundred, few are in lakhs. So that depends, and that varies from one state to another state, one cultural region to another cultural region. So we
Mm-hmm.
can begin with your support from the area where you wish to work, maybe Jharkhand or maybe
Mm.
Assam or some other place.
Jharkhand, beginning from
Yeah,
Jharkhand. Yeah.
uh, so we can do it. And then we can compare that how much the policy
Yes.
of
Right.
that financial inclusion has made
Mm.
impact, or what is what are the steps that requires to be taken. Then we can, after that we can share it with the government, because as I
Mm.
mentioned last time that usually what when we do webinar we share with the government, the, and
Mm.
then we are asked, yes, you suggest what to do, then let us have do that experiment which you are suggesting, and then we will see how we can involve the government, how government can support, that we will
Mm.
discuss. Now we have another Professor Gaurav Marathi. He is in IIM, again from Ranchi. He has done some good work in the thing, not among the tribals, but it is certainly about the financial inclusion of the marginal castes. So I request him to make his presentation and make us aware of his findings.
Thank you, Professor Narayan. Thank you, Professor Sucheta, for bringing out different insights, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with knowledgeable audience out here. Uh, on just I just wanted to know whether my presentation I have just shared it, but I think it is processing. So, Siddha, what we need to do for that?
So what you do is that you just WhatsApp the presentation to me. It will take me 2 minutes to send the presentation to my. Okay, yeah, yeah.
You can see, right? Yeah, yeah. So it is visible. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Basically, it's nice to join the esteemed guest and host on this subject matter. I do not consider myself to be expert. I am not even knowledgeable on this subject. I am just a novice who is currently working in the state of Jharkhand as my profession as a management professor, and being part of institute which is located in state of Jharkhand. I think it is my responsibility to contribute back to the tribal community which form this state. So from that I have been I feel it my responsibility, and from that interest I keep doing small things. So my work is not at all yet started, and so what I'm going to speak is an idea that have came to my mind while working on few projects. So please excuse me if my knowledge is is not sufficient, and hence my some of the ideas or whatever I'm presenting has some errors or is a bit hypothetical, because I'm not expert in the nomad tribe or vulnerable tribe, but my passion or my interest is to work with overall tribal community from Jharkhand, and hence I'm going to speak from one of the two projects that I'm doing for them and what I observe. So I'm not going to focus much on peculiarly what we covered as a financial inclusion in terms of improving them financial access or including them in various identity projects and so on. So, but I'm going to take a step forward and going to look it as livelihood generation in terms of community-based enterprises, can that be a viable alternate for these communities? And is there any potential in idea of community-based enterprise? This is what going to be my focus. Pardon me for not exactly mapping with the title, but it is better to speak what I know than venturing out in an area which I am not expert. So to start with, basically, if you look at particularly Jharkhand context, and somehow the presentation in this form is getting diluted. I don't know. So the slide, it is different, but it is showing something a bit getting twisted. So in a Jharkhand context, if you look at it, we are second poorest state. Recent data that got published. But then interestingly, we have huge resources in terms of mining is everybody talk about, but along with that, we have a great resources of forests. And against that, if you look at the enterprising, which obviously you will not expect it with vulnerable tribes, but even in general about other tribe population, enterprising is very, very low. So this is a problem that I feel need to be addressed. That on one side you have a strong poverty, on other side you have very high natural resources, but then on other side again you have a very low enterprising skill. So there seems to be a gap between these three dimensions of poverty, resources, and enterprising, and what can be done so that we can field it, how we can deal with this paradox. And to just give us some data point from census of, so I'm going to speak particularly in the context of Jharkhand. So from a census of India 2011 data set, so 29.62 percentage area of Jharkhand land belong to forest land. Now that's huge. So almost 3 out of 10 is forest available in Jharkhand, uh, and most of the many of the tribal communities still forest dwelling community. I mean they rely on forest for many of the things, and even then, 82% of scheduled tribe households in rural Jharkhand are earning less than 5,000 rupees per month. And now I'm not even speaking about vulnerable tribe here. I'm speaking about probably people who have certain access, who have certain kind of a connect with larger society. But even then, look at the gap. I mean, you have a 30% forest land, but then people who dwell in this forest land, 82% of them are earning less than 5,000 rupees per month as a maybe a household income. Now, how this gap can be fulfilled? I mean, financial inclusion, obviously, as Sucheta ma'am has also pointed out, literacy, financial, these are the basic steps that we need to be taking forward. But then, based on that, what we are going to build finally is a livelihood generation. So, can this gap guide us towards something? That is the first question that we need to work upon. If you look at the second interesting point, that instead of Jharkhand, if you look at overall establishment and compare that with the population size, you will find tribal population is almost nowhere in terms of enterprising. Enterprising is percentage of tribal population in state of Jharkhand is again very, very low. So I'm trying to highlight on one side you have a forest resources, you have all that you can have in those forests available to you, but then you have a very, very less poverty. And then on the side is enterprising, and there is no enterprising. So you have a resources, but you have no enterprising, leading to a very high poverty rate. And therefore, what can be done around this? And what I'm going to discuss is around this idea of gap between resources, enterprising, and poverty. What can be the solution? And there is this concept which current government is using a lot. It is called as a community based enterprising. I mean, we do not expect we will have a individual enterprises here, because the resources are shared resources. forest land is a community land, and so it's not about one person creating an enterprise around it, but a community building an enterprising around those shared resources. So that is a solution that I'm going to discuss now. Can that solution address this gap between livelihood, poverty, and enterprising? So is a community-based enterprise a solution? Another thing why it is so relevant in the tribal community, because of the way way the community stay together. I mean, the community feeling is a very natural feeling, and therefore can a community-based enterprising emerge as an alternative livelihood solution? Community-based enterprise is defined as an enterprise which is owned by community. That means they are the in a way shareholders, whatever small that amount may come, but they are the one who are the owners. It is controlled by community. It is also led by community, which is going to be a bit interesting point to discuss, that how that even a vulnerable tribal community, can they lead their own community based enterprise, which is a very very ambitious claim. But if it has to be a community based enterprise, it has to be led by community. The next part is that it is able to generate a profit. So where your economic cost to benefit ratio is definitely, economic benefit to cost ratio is greater than one. But then the enterprise itself is a socially and environmentally responsible. So this profit is not about somebody's gain, but it is a community collectively gaining from it and applying those profit for its own benefit. And then last and most important point, that it act like enterprise. So it's not a one time activity, but the enterprise emerge as a financially self sustaining uh, enterprise. And I know, I mean, I don't know the I know, I mean, I have heard about the vulnerable tribes and their conditions, and therefore I'm really speaking in general CB as a solution for tribal society of Jharkhand. And I know that this is going to be very very challenging, particularly for today's discussion. But sir has already given me freedom to speak on community based enterprise. So taking the discussion forward, can the CB emerge as a solution for communities which are dwelling in the forest, which have forest resources available to them, but then they probably are not enterprising right now and they are facing a severe poverty? So can a community doing enterprising emerge the solution to solve the problem of poverty, is what a hypothetical scenario that we are discussing right now. Is it even a feasible? Now it's not exactly hypothetical because government is already working on it. Particularly, this is a policy or scheme that was introduced 3 years back or 4 years back. That's a Vandhan Vikas Yojana, so VDVK scheme. And idea was that these communities would form groups and they would collect the forest products, so a non-timber forest product NTFPs, and this would be gathered by them. And the community would act as a center which would get a minimum MSPs, minimum selling price for those products, so that is assured by government. And then they would also be helped with a value addition training, and government would sell their products, would provide them market, would provide them initial capital, and these centers or enterprises which would collect these NTFPs and would process them further would be known as Vandhan Vikas Kendras. And currently, in context of Jharkhand, already 39 Vandhan Vikas Kendras are there across Jharkhand, and further this number would go up double digit, triple digit. I mean, that's what the future plans are. And if we talk about across India, I think it is one of the very ambitious scheme of central government, where they think that through this Vandhan Vikas Kendras, we would able to bring out the changes in the livelihood generation, and therefore overall poverty status of these communities. The idea is very simple, that the forest dwelling communities in a way keep collecting various products from forest. They anyway were doing it, so can they collect these products, and instead of they being exploited by middlemen, government intervene, create the centers where these products are deposited, where they get a minimum selling price. So that's a first value addition, that instead of you giving your pure products at a very low value being exploited, you get what it deserve or what it should deserve. And another part is that instead of then selling these raw products as it is to the centers, can they add some value, not necessarily a great finished products, but some value addition, and that value addition would give them more money. Is it even possible? So Vandan Vikas Kendras have been established. They have been already been given funds by government as an initial uh, expenditure for their establishment, for their empowerment, for their training. There are Vandan Vikas Kendra training partners who are trying to skill them on enterprising, trying to teach them on value added products and so on. So the question is that can this model be a uh, effective livelihood alternative to bring out to pull out these communities from poverty, is a question that we are discussing. So to just highlight how this would look like, say for example, right now many of the forest dwelling communities collect the sun leaves and they sell it in kgs. I mean 1 kg would get them 21 rupees and so on. So I'm just giving some last figures that were there maybe 1 year back. Now the government is promising that okay, that time the msp was 35 rupees per kg. So instead of they being exploited by middleman with this skin centers, whatever they are collecting from forest would get some higher benefit. And then imagine if they can convert these leaves into plates. I mean, this is a very well explored opportunities. It has failed sometime, it has been successful at some time. But if these sal leaves are converted into plates, then 100 plates can get 220 rupees. So that's a big value addition. That's a really, really big value addition. Can this happen? But is a question. I mean, these are all idealistic scenarios that the same sal leaves which have been exploited from them can be collected at MSPs or can be added and converted into some value added products and can sell at higher values. And this would be done by a community-based enterprise of this tribal community. It is owned by them, managed by them, led by them, controlled by them. All the profit goes back to them, and it become a financially sustainable. Government support in terms of providing capital, some kind of a technology, some kind of a training. Similarly, so for example, some tribals in Jharkhand collect tamarind, which they right now are exploited almost. If you go to local heart, you'll find this tamarinds been collected at 20 rupees per kg and like that. And this is at the local heart. So at a community level, it would be even low. Now, government promised them MSP of 36 kg. So it's a great scheme. I mean, you can add a 16 rupees value per kg of tamarind. Now, same thing if we see the market, the tamarind paste is sell at a 400 gram for 122 rupees. So, can this be a solution? I mean, it's very difficult, but very promising one. So, instead of selling tamarind as it is, can we sell the tamarind paste? Now, paste is still a bit high complex product, but let assume a simple candy. You don't need to do much work on it. Now, the same candy in a local market, you will get a 450 grams at 250 rupees. So, is this value addition possible for these communities? That's a question that we have to ask, and government is working towards it. For example, mahua, and this product is beautiful because it can be stored. It is not one time. I mean, though we will collect it one time, I know that when I'm now visiting many of these places, the old stored mahua, we are making mahua laddus and selling them. So mahua otherwise will give you 1 kg 25 rupees. Now MSP was 29 per kg, but the same mahua, if I can convert into oil, it would give me 85 rupees for 25 ml. Or if same mahua is converted into laddus, I get 400 rupees for 500 gram. So value addition potential is huge in terms of all this that they have. I mean, these communities that I am discussing, they stay in forest. They have all these resources. They regularly collect them, but then they sell it at a value. Basically, they are exploited. Or Baheda, 1 kg you get 10 rupees by middleman. But MSP is promised 17 kg. So even if I don't add any value, I if just sell it at MSP, I have a higher value. And if I can add value and convert it into some kind of powder, or I mean there is a huge value. Baheda powder will go, a 1 kg powder can have 1,000 rupees. I mean that's a huge value addition out there. Can we really able to do this? Can we really able to pull this out is a question that I would come at the last part of my discussion. Similarly, Chiroji 1 kg 60 rupees is what they currently sell all this product outside in a local middleman. But then MSC was promised at 126 rupees per kg. At least that can be done. If not, if you can convert it into, if you select those sales, classify them into certain quality, consciousness, and all those stuff, 100 gram can give you 200 rupees. So the question is that this whatever I have, my understanding, it's a very limited understanding, is that on one side there is a huge forest resources that throughout the annual cycles these communities are collecting and most of the time using for their own purpose or are putting it some outside middlemen. Can that get a better value is the first simple principle. Second, can they really work together and add value to it? Now, if that happens, the next question is that can this entire process be a sustainable process as a community-based enterprise? This is another question. And my current work or what I'm trying to understand, and I would like to say that we have government has initiated many VDVKs. The good work is going on, and it's experimentation that we have to see the results maybe next year. How much government is able to do this, pull this out successfully across India. I see some of the very interesting challenges. I mean, as of now, capital. I mean, for any business to be successful, capital is the important thing. But the government itself is promoting it. I mean, most of these VDBKs have got initial capital and funding, and honestly speaking, these businesses are not high capital incentive businesses. I mean, a small value addition can happen with a small capital. So government is trying to build that, but then the financial literacy and managing that capital without external help might be an issue. So we might still need agencies which facilitate the entire process and support in this endeavor. The second issue is a market, which is a big issue because will we target a local heart? Would we target a local village? Will target a local district place? Or these products can get a quality? I mean, how will be the market connected? Will each enterprise need to search its own market because they don't move out? They don't allow others to enter. Some of them don't allow them to enter others in their own terrain, and in that context, how they would be connected with market. But if the market connection does not happen, can the value addition take place? The third issue is of technology. Obviously, the collection itself can be enhanced better. The quality can be improved with the technology addition. And the more we use technology, the value addition would be better. The more lesser the technology, obviously the value addition is going to be challenged. Most of these government schemes, they provide those machines and they become junk out there because the training is not sufficient, or I mean, once these machines are not working, there's nobody who can go and repair it, and the entire project fell down. So while the technology is important, how we contextualize in this context of or vulnerable I mean, is it even possible is a question that I'm exploring. I mean, I don't know. The knowledge part, I mean, enterprising is do involve I think that exists with them. I mean, the community, it's not that we who are educated are the entrepreneurs, and rather these communities are more enterprising than us. But just that, can that enterprising with accurate knowledge converted into a enterprising which create profits? Because that's not a natural, that's not their value, and which is good. I mean, on a very ideological level, should we even introduce them this our society's narrow values of profit making? And but then the sustainability is still important, and that they have. So can that sustainability be connected with their interconnection with external societies, something, and the entire business knowledge around that? Can we really think about that? And then authority, I mean, any business would need a structure, and their community have the traditional structures. So how we enterprise structure can be weave around their traditional structure? And then the last two parts are, I think, more important and more critical for this enterprise success. The one is a social identity. I mean, can they really adapt to this identity of enterprises? I mean, that's a I honestly don't know, because my exposure is very very less. But that may become a very very critical success factor. I mean, unless somebody think that they are entrepreneur, can their enterprise be successful, and will that threaten their other identity? And how we are going to make it a very synergized experimentation. And then the last part is that the more they will start enterprising, more it would have a connect with a larger society, and relationships which previously were of exploitation, which were dominance and power over these communities. How you reverse that, how you play the entire enterprise as equal, with among all. And therefore, I mean, while it look very fancy and a promising idea, that as community based enterprise, which the resources that they have naturally with them, it make a very interesting pitch for livelihood generation, and in a way all kind of a poverty elevation measurement. It is equally challenging with all these issues, which would able to convert their right into access. Otherwise, right is there, land right might be there, they might have a right over resources, but does it really access, does it really can they develop a value from that right? If that has not been tackled, CB may not be I mean, we may face a challenges in producing it as a solution. So I think that is, sir, Narayan sir. What else? I mean, since you invited me, I thought I should join and learn from all of you guys. But my knowledge is very very limited. These are the some projects on which we are working, and we are trying to understand, can we do this? I mean, can this become a interesting livelihood alternative for tribal communities in Jharkhand? And I just hope that we are successful, and we are able to contribute to this various scheme. Thank you for giving me opportunity. I think this is a small point that I wanted to make.
Thank you, Professor Gaurav. You have made a good case study of Jharkhand regarding the community on which you are working. And as Professor Chaudhary suggested, that if you have some intern with you, then we can have a comparative study. Because you have that study of community, we can go for the tribal study also. Because in that
Yeah.
community, tribal may be there, may not be there, but when you are specific about these nomadic dwindling primitive tribes, then there are some tribes around Ranchi also. From that we can have, if you have some intern with you, or
Yes.
if you
Yes.
can collaborate with Professor Chaudhary, because both of you are in Ranchi, then it can be a very good study, and we can give a felt need based uh, report for drafting policy, real policy for the real development of this category of tribal tribes of India. So they deserve our attention, and they are such community which deserve your attention also, because
Sure.
they are on the margin. They, so it is our responsibility to bring them out from their current status. The government programs are there, the policies are there, only linkages are to be given. How to link them with such development inputs. That is that, as you mentioned about the community, that is possible because you have that much of experience of field work. Can be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Uh,
sir. Thank you.
thank you very much. Dr. Shivanu, please. Shivani.
Hello.
Hmm.
Tribal women उन्होंने अपने व्यापार के क्षेत्र में धीरे धीरे बहुत प्रगति की। पहले जैसे अभी डॉक्टर गौरव ने दिखाया कि 20 रुपए का सामान अगर वो बना करके बेचती हैं तो उसे उन्हें 200 रुपए का फायदा हो सकता है। इसी तरह बहुत सारे जैसे सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप है, उसके द्वारा भी वो अपना आर्थिक स्थिति को अच्छा कर सकती हैं। यहाँ जैसे बिहार में मैंने बहुत सारा देखा है कि छोटे छोटे ग्रुप बना करके वो लोग बड़ा व्यापार खड़ा करती हैं।
संस्था संसिदा
यस सर।
का आवाज कट रहा है तो आप
उसका आवाज
वाइंड
सर
अप
उनके
कीजिए।
साइड से टेक्निकल इशू होगा, उनके साइड से।
ठीक है, तो आप वाइंड अप कर लीजिए।
ठीक है सर। So it was really a pleasure. It was great to have this webinar, and it was really a great thing to have this webinar. And we had a huge, very beautiful communication today, a beautiful conversation today, and this conversation will be remembered forever. And we really should do something about the tribes. And so I'm really glad that today this webinar was held. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending today's webinar. And I hope we will see each other again.
नमस्ते।
Thank you. Namaste. Thank you.
Okay, नमस्ते।